people are joining slowly. Welcome, everyone. Just going to give it a few minutes to give people enough time to join.
Also, join it now. Straight into the neck.
Give it one more minute. People are coming in to the room. Okay, I think we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. Well, obviously, I'm sure more people will join as we continue. Welcome to the third in our edition or our series of webinars. You can see all our panelists who are with us today. My name is Joshua Lowe. I'm working with SA Fashion Week, and I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of the event. It's coming up now in October at the Mall of Africa. From the 20th to 22nd of October, we've got the fashion shows. I've just been informed that you can now buy tickets at Quicket or on Quicket. And then the 23rd and the 24th of October, we have the trade show, which we're very excited about. We've already got over 30 designers who've signed up. We are sending out space quickly. We've got a very exciting new seminar program we're going to be running alongside of it for buyers who do attend, and various other initiatives. And so, yeah, I'm going to be posting a link if you're interested in registering, and I'll also share the contact details of my colleague Hanley if you would like to sign up or inquire about the trade show itself. So without further ado, I'm going to go straight in and just introduce our moderator for the session, Cyril Naicker, who's going to be moderating the session. And then the format will be, I'll introduce each of the panelists, who will just spend about 5 minutes, just a high-level overview, talking a bit about their businesses and what they've done, some tips and tricks, some of the challenges they've had to overcome. And then afterwards, we'll have about a 15-minute Q&A session. So please, if you have questions, use the Q&A box or the comment box, and then we'll keep those questions to the end and we'll pose them to the various panelists. So Cyril Naicker has represented South Africa at the United Nations panel discussion on sustainable fashion. He is the country coordinator of Fashion Revolution South Africa. He is the chief executive at Imprint Luxury and chief sustainability executive at Plain Tiger, and wrote the Sustainability Accelerator program. So nice to have you on board, Cyril. Look forward to a very interesting discussion. And with that, I think we'll go into our first kind of speaker, and that's Janine Starkey. So if the other panelists would like to just turn their cameras off, keep themselves on mute, and we'll open the floor to you now, Janine. Just want to give her a bit of an intro. So House of Janine is headed up by Janine Starkey, who studied fashion design at the London International School of Fashion, qualifying with an international high diploma in fashion design and technology. Janine spent the first 5 years of her career working at the popular South African soap opera Egoli as head of the wardrobe department, having learned valuable experience in the art of styling and how it can create and shape a character. Janine decided to shift her focus to help real men and women looking to find their own image and feel comfortable in their own style. House of Janine opened its doors in 2004 and developed into Tweak and Style. With that, over to you, Janine.
Thank you so much for the opportunity for being here. I am super excited to share my heartbeat with you guys. The good, the bad, and ugly of business. My goodness, what a subject. And I probably could talk about it for days and days and days. Being a creative, one of the most difficult things, especially as a creative entrepreneur, is to understand the ins and outs of actually the fundamentals of running a company. And I tell you, it has been a roller coaster ride. Back when I began my business, I left Igoli as I was already the head of the wardrobe department, and I had shopped and shopped and shopped, building all these beautiful characters and the glitz and the glam of that. Although we worked our butts off, I then obviously opened up what was House of Janine, is now Tweak and Style. And when I opened up my business, I remember asking my father, it was many, many years ago, please understand that, audience, I asked my father, how do I send a fax? How do I write a check? Because nobody ever taught you that. You know, it wasn't, those were things, I suppose, in your words would be how to write an email. I mean, that's how layman it was and how bad it was to understand just those tiny little things that are so critical when starting a company that's above just design or production or manufacturing or styling. So when I began, my heart was not focused around design. It was definitely went into the styling world and creating incredible wardrobes for people. But I was working from home. I'd moved back in with my parents, and my world was definitely more tiny. I was living in Alberton in the middle of this, you know, the south of Johannesburg, and it was a rude awakening. And I think, you know, as a young entrepreneur, I was 25. I had guns blazing, ready to rock and roll, thought I was going to conquer the fashion industry, knew I had so much passion and so much desire and so much ambition to, you know, be this incredible stylist and play in the fashion world, for it in the reality of the fashion world, that I think I was a little bit delusional. So I think if I look at it and go, well, what was the bad thing about starting my business was I lived in fantasy la la land. And I needed to get back down to roots. So I think that was the most important lesson I learned very quickly, was that reality is there needs to be a cash flow, there needs to be income statements, there needs to be accountants, there needs to be all these other things to make my ideas work, to make my passion and my creativity actually formulate and turn into a sustainable business. So that was my world. I mean, now, yes, it's 20 years later, and thank heavens I had an incredible support system around me, you know, from my folks' side who knew nothing of the fashion industry. Let me just put that in perspective. But other authorities around me, people that I could ask and ask for help and ask for ideas and ways to turn my crazy into something really tangible. So yeah, I've grown the business, absolutely. It has diversified. It has grown into all sorts of other things. I now am a keynote speaker. I speak a lot in corporate. I'm a motivational speaker. Understanding the art of style and image and getting in front of an audience has been my greatest achievement. I would definitely say that. I have developed clothing collections now, which has been very, very exciting. So I've dipped my toe back into the actual production world of fashion, but my most rewarding has been in education. And it's teaching individuals and teaching people, students, on how to do what I do as a seasoned image consultant, and then turn their ideas into incredible business, which is, just growing our community and growing our economy. It's so exciting what's happening in South African fashion right now, especially as a person who builds wardrobes, who chooses clothing from SA Design and puts it in women's cupboards and puts it on their bodies and watches the woman metamorphosize in front of us. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful. So I think my biggest lesson that I learned, yes, first and foremost, is ask for help. And I think the second thing is stick with it. You know, stick with your guns, know what you are producing, know what your heart is, and stay true to your message. Understand your brand, understand what you want your message to be, and then turn that and make that your foundation, and that all my fingers in the different pies. I mean, Cyril, you were talking earlier that you got lots of little bits and pieces that you play with, and those are incredible businesses and incredible ideas, but they all stay true to they all stay true to your heartbeat. Our heartbeat has always been about look good, feel good, perform. And if it fits back into developing an individual in our country, making them feel good about themselves, making them self-confident, teaching them how to get it right for their own lifestyles and for their corporate brand image, then I'm onto something. Then I can make sure that I've checked the box and I'm staying true to my brand. So I think that's pretty much the other thing that I really learned that has revolutionized my business.
Janine.
That's great. Yeah, no, great, Janine. Very nice and passionate view, and congratulations. Cyril?
Yeah, sorry, Janine, I was just going to mention, I think for the time that we find ourselves in South Africa, look good, feel good, perform. I think that should kind of be almost the mantra that we should be following through. I think what's quite interesting, you spoke about there was a time when you would send a fax. So that obviously talks about starting up the business. And then we've kind of, over the last few years, we moved over to Zoom and Teams and Google Meet and all of this kind of stuff. I think from having to adapt, just a question, you've touched on a few things, but I just want to find out, what is the one sort of important thing that you would say that one needs to consider when thinking about setting up a business? So somebody that's listening to you today may have been involved in something else, like you were at Egoli, and now has to pivot onto something else. What would be the one sort of advice that you would say to them to encourage them on this new journey?
Encourage them on a new journey. I think to ask yourself why, so I knew I wanted to, quick story, if I may, forgive me, Cyril. I'd styled an actress on television for the show, and I'd gone and bought her a pair of jeans, and she was perfect. I mean, when it was the most beautiful body shaped dress, and put them on, and she asked me for help to fix her shape because she was unhappy. She has flaws, body flaws. And in that moment, it was a light on for me that I went, wow, we all have insecurities, we all have issues, we all have, and that's the kind of why that became my why for building my brand, and has sustainably 20 years later still been the why. So I think to answer your question, and I hope I'm answering it correctly, is ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? What do I want to achieve out of it? And make sure that your passion stays through it no matter what. So even as you pivot into this new realm, I mean, yes, I did. I went from styling on television straight into fashion and running my own, but that why has to be the foundation of everything. So I encourage absolutely every creative entrepreneur out there, as long as you can answer the why, you've got something to start with. And that is the first clue to building your first business, is making sure you've got some meat to hold on to. You know what I mean?
For sure. That's incredible. Thanks for that, Janine. Really appreciate it. Josh, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Janine. Okay, well, with that, we'll go on to our next speaker, Shane Vignard. Shane has spent the past 10 years working with startup and retail e-commerce brands in South Africa. He has spent multiple years working on the retail buying and merchandise aspects, working with brands such as Edgars, Sports Scene, and Studfords across footwear, apparel, and accessories. In the last few years, the focus and passion has been on building, launching, and scaling e-commerce brands, in which he assists in customer acquisition, customer conversion, and customer retention strategies using paid media across Facebook, Instagram, and Google. Recently, he has worked with local brands such as Code, Walk Fresh SA, and also Skinny Cebu Stocks. Welcome, Shane. Over to you.
Joshua, thanks very, very much for that. And again, firstly, thanks very much for SA Fashion Week for opportunity to be able to present today. So from my side, as mentioned by Joshua, I am Shane Vignard, and really much I spent a lot of the kind of years in kind of build up, whether it is during COVID and before COVID, kind of really much preparing for the stage or time that we are in right now. So when I was invited or asked to come and speak and address you guys at SA Fashion Week, and really much around the topic of starting and growing your business, for me, it was really much going to be focused on around how do you distribute your product online in a sense of e-commerce, as that's really much an opportunity for you guys that's within the space. So whether you are a retailer, a merchant, a designer, or just a business, this is really much come in handy for you. So when it comes to the topic of what exactly is e-commerce, so e-commerce is, in a nutshell, is electronic commerce. So whether that is the buying and selling of a product within an online space. So where this allows you as a business or a merchant, it really much gives you the ability to be able to manage your products online receive payment as well as process orders. So within this space, it really much creates a lot of opportunities, and that will cover as we go through the good, bad, and ugly. But when we look at what happened with COVID, is that for a lot of businesses, whether it is retail businesses or merchants, for that matter, when the news, of COVID came out, globally, there wasn't really choice in terms of whether you can continue to trade with your business. It was really much, a directive that there were hard lockdowns, across the world, whether that was, limiting the sale or the physical access to shopping malls and shopping centers. That also kind of prohibited certain items, to be sold. But what it has allowed for, it really much shifted the way that customers and consumers shop, because they were not allowed to go, into these spaces to interact with brands, products, or even, get essential, items. A lot of customers have shifted their kind of behaviors, and patterns have now also accelerated in terms of being able, or looking into the views of e-commerce as a way of transacting with brands, and businesses. And that really much on both sides, whether it is from a consumer point of view, change the way they transact, but also for us as merchants and retailers, also change the way that we actually communicate, engage, as well as being able to transact, with our customers and target audience. So just to look at the reasons, why you would want to why you want to distribute and sell your products, online through an e-commerce store. So right now, e-commerce globally is one of the fastest growing, markets, with the sense of in 2018, according to Stats South Africa, online retail in our country only account for 2% at that time. 2 years later, it increased to 4%. And where we see with the projections looking like for 2025, that percentage being between 5 and 6%, but that value now surpassing 14 billion rand in terms of online retail. So the opportunity in terms of the space with online shopping is definitely going to be around for a long time, and definitely it's going to grow, as consumers continue to transact and engage with products and brands from an online, point of view. So that kind of gets me into, the key kind of pillars of the good, bad, and ugly. So when it comes to selling your products, online and distributing your products through an online store, really much the good of that is that you don't have a high startup cost or investment cost that's needed. So if you look at how things used to be in the past, where you had looked for a physical retail store, in that instance, already you're thinking of long-term rental agreements. You need to do shop fittings, as well as get staff and security in order to manage, that kind of business or that physical location. But now with an online store, the cost of setting up that store is not, investment is not as huge or as big as what it has been required to in the past. But also, adding on to that, the key benefit is also you have access to market and customers, because adding on to the first point, where if you are based in, whether it is the trendy, streets of Cape Town, or you're in a Sandton shopping center, you're really much in a physical location, you're kind of bound to the people within that space and that lives within that radius or in that demographics. But once you start selling online and distributing products through an e-commerce, platform or store, this therefore allows you to serve customers in different geolocations across borders or boundaries, but also just be able to serve, customers, and have access to that market and customers, across the board. But also a very good thing to take out is that also, especially within the fashion and the design space, is that you could use the feature and function of where you don't have to put out a full range to cover, multiple stores or locations, but you could actually, if used smartly, be able to work on a pre-order model where you can actually test in the market to see whether the market is wanting a particular, fit, style, color, or even particular trend piece that has come. And before you actually invest in actually producing the range or the garments, you can actually get some feedback or response or sales, using an online store by the kind of feature of, pre-orders or using that before you actually, do go into production. But with everything that is good, we do, come across the bad, and the ugly. So within that pillar of bad, I think it kind of works in both space. So I think customers are just overwhelmed by the amount of choice. Just a quick Google search, if you're looking for a white shirt or, for example, a black blouse, the amount of options and results you get is, quite broad and quite wide. And that gives customers, a big choice, but not in a bad sense, but in a sense of it makes it quite difficult for customers to choose. So from a brand or retail point of view, what is kind of your point of difference? So how are you using the option of customers having multiple choices, but how are you making sure that customers are coming to you? Do you have a brand story to tell? Are you regarding the aspect of sustainability in terms of fashion? Is your items procured in a particular way that customers are actually able to buy into that brand story, and not just in terms of a product or choice? With products and items being online as well, customers now also have a higher level of expectation. So whether your delivery is 1 to 3 days or 3 to 5 days, customers are expecting to receive that order within that particular time or period. And as well, I think just to add to that is that this is really a new space for many retailers or merchants. So what comes into play is that there are many moving parts. So where you are listing your products online, busy with your fulfillment of your orders or dealing with customer service, there is also the other end of where you now need to market, acquire those customers, but to also be able to communicate to those customers, as you transact and engage and kind of communicate with them, as well. But then last but not least, I think when it comes to the ugly of starting your business from an online or e-commerce distribution point of view, what happens, the challenges coming is very much from the logistics and delivery partners. I think for the big part of African in its market is that a lot of our addresses are very much non-documented, but a big part of our market sits into that space. A lot of our spending power sits in that environment as well, but it's important that we think of creative ways in terms of how do we get our product to the market and to the customer around the challenges, whether it is with couriers or not having actual addresses or locations for our customers to actually deliver to. Further to that also, I think when they say first impressions count, I think in online it counts, I think even more. And I think it actually stays a bit longer because you only have one opportunity to kind of impress a customer from an online experience. I think that also leads on to the next point where social media has also, in whatever way it's been good, has also been bad in the sense of, so if you're not managing your customers' expectations as best as what you can, it is now given the voice of the customer to actually put out the experience. So whether that is good, bad, or ugly, it will be quickly shared across whether it is social media platforms or platforms like Hello Pizza, per se. But really much, I think with all of that being said, there's still a great opportunity for brands and retailers that are looking into moving into this e-commerce or online space. And it's really much, only gonna take off in our country, and the opportunity within that space is only gonna really much increase and grow. And that's it from our side. Thanks very much.
Thanks for that, Shane. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that we're going to get into later, and I have a few that I really want to ask, but I'm going to hand over back to Josh, that we're going to hear from Bettina, and then we'll go into the Q&A.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. That's very interesting, and I think very important because e-commerce is becoming such a big thing. If you look at it, especially in a South African context, it's growing rapidly. So it's nice to get that perspective from an e-commerce point of view. We'll now move on to our last panelists, and that's Bettina and Kelly, and they're going to be talking today. I'd like to obviously use the opportunity in the platform to congratulate them. I believe they launched their spring fashion range, and so big congratulations to them. But Bettina and Kelly founded this brand with a strong belief the fashion industry deserved to shake up, and their team of South African designers and craftsmen could be just the people to deliver that something different. In 2018, they gathered a team of experts who had studied fashion intently and knew all the rules, but also had the right amount of confidence and creativity to be able to deliver something completely new and fresh. Tasked with proving that high-quality, fashion-forward clothing that could be available for all at a fair price, they created piece after piece that is a testament to their passion for making fashion more accessible to all. And I think that's nice opening. Bettina, you on? You can obviously turn your camera on, unmute your mic, and look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am missing Kelly today because of the spring launch. So we had a an Aperol sponsored spring launch. I'm wearing the colors of our spring range, which is an orange and blue. And it was quite an exciting lunch, but I've loved the opportunity to get on here and to just give some knowledge to anyone that's starting a business. So I'm an old veteran in this business. I started in 1985, straight into dealing with chain stores, Foschini's and Truworths and all the big stores, Woolworths. And I remember in those days designing 10, 12 tops just to manufacture one. So lots and lots of designing. And we brought out new ranges every 6 weeks. So an old veteran in clothing and design and manufacturing. And what Kelly has brought to the table is that she was a buyer at Foschini's for 7 years and joined me. And we decided to start this brand because we just felt there's nothing out there for the bigger woman. And that will show a fashion piece from a size 32 to a size 46. And it's something's missing worldwide. So we just feel that we want to do a brand that's sizeless, ageless, and it's just a passion for both of us to give and show what we love. And I think the best part about having your own brand is to be creative and actually seeing those creations come alive like we did today. And it's just so exciting. And I think both of us are incredibly passionate about what we do. And I think passion is what drives us to be in this business. It's a very difficult business to be in, but you love it because every day is different. And as long as you got the passion and you go forward. I just think that with regards to starting a business, we started this 4 years ago. And it was the best time to start because there's so much opportunity now for young brands because of Instagram and social media. You can actually start it with smaller ranges, not so much of a money outlay, because clothing actually takes a lot of money to start a business in clothing. And we use social media for all our advertising. And I think that the most important thing that we did when we started the brand was we actually got someone in to help us with the brand Bible. And that has helped us the whole lot, because you have to be sticking to the brand and what it's about from the beginning to the end. You cannot deviate, because as soon as you deviate, it confuses the consumer. So you have to have a very, very specific idea about who I am, what I am, and who is my customer. Once you know that, then you just deal with that customer and you build a community. And as if you've got a community, are they going to buy the black pen from you, or they're going to go and buy it from Mr. Price? Because they're part of your community, they will buy the black pants from you. They want to be part of your little brand. And I think that's important as far as starting a clothing brand. And I just think that with clothing, we try and make everything local. And we are a sustainable brand, but we don't want to call ourselves sustainable because of dyeing of fabric. It's very difficult to be a sustainable. So we say we are responsible to the planet in everything we do, from cutting masks out of the leftover fabric or scrunchies, or just trying to stop landfill, or we don't use any plastic mailers and when we send out on our website. It's just small things to try and be sustainable. But as soon as you put dye onto cloth, it is an issue because it is a pollutant. But you must try all the way through each part of the production process to be sustainable. And I think that's important in clothing. And also we try to do everything locally. We have 12 factories here in Cape Town that we keep going. Each of them, some of them are family owned, which is incredible. And they have, with that, you can imagine the amount of people that you're employing, and that's so exciting. What else? I would say that the bad thing in starting a business is the money. I am a creative, so it has been quite a thing for me now. I've got pay bills, be on the bank all the time, and manage the cash flow, which is crazy. and through my past history, I used to have finances. I've actually been through 3. And one of the things I would say is try not to go with financer, people that are bringing money in. Rather use the bank or factor your business, or do something where you're keeping it, the money with you. Because as soon as you start having it and you're having to check with a financer and he is running your money, it's very, very difficult. So I would say try and keep it small and keep it within your range of money. We started off with not getting much out. We went really back to having no money monthly, because it's a process. You have to put the money back in, and it slowly grows and grows. So it's very hard, but the passion and the excitement of having your brand and seeing people wear it and seeing it on Instagram, and we get beautiful letters about people saying, I never knew that I could wear pants. I've never worn a pair of pants. Now I've got these beautiful pants from you. Or they love color now. All of a sudden, they never wore color before. They're loving color. We're all about a South African loves color. So I think that you need to, first of all, do what you're passionate about, make it for yourself, and just try the hardest to do whatever you need to make it happen.
Thanks very much for that, Bettina.
Yeah.
Great, appreciate it.
It's
I'm great. Sorry.
No, I just want to say it's really weird talking to yourself, but I feel like I'm talking
No,
so
we're
much.
here.
Yeah. Bettina, I'm gonna go straight over to some questions that have been popping up. So Shane, this one is coming to you. There's a question that says, thank you for your presentation. It was quite informative. I'd like to find out, how does a young designer who's not affiliated with a design school bring themselves on the radar of fashion buyers for stores such as Edgar's, Woolworths, etc.? So Shane, that question is for you. While you are thinking about that, Shane, there's also some others that have popped up. One is, we launched our brand online in April. Our brand is built on sustainability and shifts consumers to slow fashion. What would your advice be in terms of ad spend on Meta per month? So Shane, over to you.
I'm quite happy with that. So I'll look at the first one. So just to understand, right? So when the question's asking, getting them on the radar, is that as a fashion brand, or would that be as a...
Yes. So it says, as a young designer who is not affiliated to a design school, they basically want to get onto the radar with buyers.
Cool. So I think that's always a very interesting one, because I think, and I'll answer this thing from kind of 2 parts. So from in the shoes of a buyer, is that you kind of get allocated amount that you can spend, per season. That spend that you have to invest in, I'm talking from a buyer's point of view, when looking at which brands to invest and buy into, is that you have a kind of big requirements to obviously bring a return on that investment. So buyers are very selective in terms of trying new brands, or by bringing in new products into their space and into their stores. But I think how that has really much changed now, and why I see that kind of approach change, is that the brands that are already making the right amount of kind of noise, or the customers are making the noise for them, that normally brings the attention of the buyers of the brand. I've recently seen, I think I've been into, for example, I could be in, like, for example, Pick n Pay clothing, where they have also right now partnered with a local fashion designer, which that designer has already on its own built customers, built the brand, and it was easier for the guys to actually say that we actually have space in our stores for you. Are you able to bring your capsule or range into that space? But I know from, in terms of buyers looking to procure and actually place orders for local brands to fill and stock into the stores, those chats become very, very different. But I think let me just to add to that as well, is that's therefore allowing that In the past, the only retail space that you could get was in the likes of Edgar's and Woolworths, etc. But again, now because you have access to do that yourself by the use of similar tools, whether it's the online store or an online presence, it really much, allows you to speak to that same customer, on the kind of shared platform, but to able to build, that brand in kind of that that approach.
Thanks for that, Shane. And then just the second question in terms of ad spend. I guess, somebody is just wanting to find out, they've launched a brand online in April, built on sustainability and shifts the consumers to slow fashion. What would your advice be in terms of ad spend on Meta per month?
Okay, cool. So that question also very much goes to a investment and return kind of conversation. So if you're looking to achieve high levels of sale, you would kind of need to invest, high levels of spend from a Facebook, Instagram, point of view. But just to give some reference of clients that I do work with, sometimes we'll have daily campaigns or budgets of anything between 20 and 40 Rand per day. And that would kind of allow us to generate sales of whether it's 15 to about 25,000, per month. So that's kind of the kind of ratio in terms of how much to spend versus, in terms of the return. But when I work with kind of more established brands and more corporates, they could, from their likes, spend anything from 100 to 1,000 Rand per day, but then their returns on that kind of investment and spend would look like in terms of sales between 300, 700, and even surpassing 1 million Rand based on that ratio of sales. So it's normally anything between 3 to 5 times the amount of sale that you're looking to achieve. If you're not seeing the kind of returns of the 3 to 5 in terms of how much you spend or invested in your marketing, then there's many things that you could look at in terms of deep diving and just troubleshooting in terms of why the conversions rates are not that high in terms of that investment versus sale.
Sure. Thanks for that, Shane. And I think also just to add, I guess it's also in terms of where your market is, your geolocation, etc. So, Isaac, if you want to look into that. Janine, I'm going to pose this question to you. I'm going to talk a little bit about cash flow and setting up prices. There's a question here that asks which apps or software work to help manage your money and your business operations. So do you have any advice for a business owner that's wanting to manage their money, in terms of an app? What would you suggest?
Look, Cyril and audience, I don't know who the name of the person is. It's difficult because I'm in the service industry. I don't actually produce my own clothing on that scope that I would require almost management of funds. My system is quite simple. I live on Sage and my accountant, it works very easily with them. I know on Sage they are able to, cost and find out the profit lines on a garment, how much fabric you've got in stock. There's lots of systems, but I think Bettina is probably, if it is a fashion designer, she's probably the better one to ask, purely because we are service driven and not product driven, which is a very different model.
That's fine. But I think in terms of software, I think you've answered that because Sage is a very good software. So I think that's something that we would certainly, because you can raise invoices, etc. So it keeps your accounting system in order. So thank you for that, Janine. Benita, I'll also ask you that question, but there is a question specifically for you, which I want to ask. If you had to start over today and were tasked with developing a range that has to be rooted in sustainability, what would you design or launch for South Africans? Benita, that's for you in terms of sustainability and a range for South Africans.
So to be a true sustainable brand, you would have to be dyeing your cloth in beetroot. And that is the issue. So from the dyeing, it would have to be natural dyes. So a lot of linen and cotton and tencel, leave the polyesters out. Rather go for muted colors. And that's what we're trying to do. Tencel at the moment. We're bringing in our own tencel, and tencel is an incredible fabric. It's more expensive, but definitely more sustainable. And it's beautiful to wear. So I would definitely start my range with tencel. And that also a fabric that can run from summer into winter. And then bring in your linens and your summer ranges, and then beautiful cottons, voils. So I just think that you would start with the fabric to be sustainable. Then obviously people get right down to the point where they're actually not even using plastic buttons. You would use a wooden made button, because that's not being sustainable as well. So you can go down to using your cotton labels instead of polyester labels. So there's even down to the thread. People get so nitty gritty, right down to the thread has to be not a polyester thread, but a cotton thread. So it depends how far you want to go. You can push it. We're a fashion brand, so it's quite difficult for us. But we do try, as I said, in every way to try and be more sustainable. I just wanted to talk to you about the system that we're using, because we're using an incredible system for our manufacturing. Because we manufacture, we bring in fabric, we bring in buttons, we bring in labels, everything. There's a lot of stock. You can imagine having to keep track of all of that. And then all of that has to go out to a factory. Then it all has to come back in garment form. So we are using a system called DEAR. It's a DEAR inventory system. And what's incredible about the DEAR inventory system is that it's connected to your Shopify and Vend, which is your point of sale, and Xero, which is your accounting system. It links from one all the way through to the other. It's the most incredible system if you're doing manufacturing, and a good way to start from the beginning, to start with the DEAR system. And as you grow, it can grow with you. So also, you won't be losing your labels and everything along the way. So as a system and an app, we use DEAR, and I would highly, highly recommend it for any young designer starting in a business.
Thank you. And Bettina, how do you spell that app? Is it
It's DEAR, D-E-A-R, D-E-A-R. So the big thing in our office, a big saying in our office is, oh dear.
I hope that that question was answered adequately. Bettina, while we have you, I'm going to go to two questions that's come up for you on the topic of sustainability. Can any company be sustainable? Do you think fashion brands greenwash in order to be relevant?
I think there's enormous amount of greenwashing, because I just know what goes into clothing. Greenwashing is a huge issue. So people need to actually be show how are they being sustainable, and be truthful about how they're being sustainable. You know, the thing is you can't say, oh, I'm a sustainable brand, and then you're using dye stuff, as I was saying, you know, or you're using polyester fabrics. This whole remixed polyester, I see from my suppliers, they say, oh, this is a sustainable polyester. Is it really a sustainable polyester? How do you prove that? Yeah. So it's so difficult, you know, unless you're using completely natural fabrics. Being sustainable is difficult in clothing.
For sure. And that's a very honest reply. Thank you for that. Hanli Fourie, for you, Bettina says, congrats on your spring collection. And the question that he wants to find out is, how does a small new brand go about choosing a photographer, models, makeup artist, and how much should one budget initially?
So what's been really fantastic for us, when we started, we put a makeup artist and a photographer on like a consignment. So it wasn't expensive. And we said to them, okay, we will use you every month, twice a month. And this is the amount of money I can pay you. See if they'll accept it, because now they know that's continual business. It's not just one-off. So you can get it at a lower price. So you can say, okay, for twice 2 shoots a month, I can do use you and makeup artist. You can just come in for 2 hours. How much would that cost? And they're there every month. And what it does, making sure that you're actually photographing your range continually, and there's new product and new images going on social media all the time. So we found that is a very, very good tip as far as starting a brand. Get hold of a friend that's an incredible photographer and say, listen, I can pay you. This is how much I have in my budget. It'll be twice a month, every month, continual business. What do you think? You know, and you can get it at a good price then.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. I want to go back to Shane. And Shane, I guess, you know, there's probably going to be a lot of questions in terms of how does a company budget, you know, in terms of ad spend. And generally speaking, in terms of the algorithms and all of that kind of stuff, what advice would you give to brands that are thinking about going onto social media and how to put their best brand forward? Shane?
Oh, perfect. So again, I think what the best approach is, and each one I think obviously is very different in that space, is that we always, when we start off, is that you kind of want to understand where you need to be in terms of your monthly sales. So you kind of work out is that, so for me to achieve, my sales target, I need to achieve X amount of sales in a 12-month period. Based on kind of trends, what is that looking like from a monthly, target point of view? So let's say, that amount is, 10,000. So for us to get, 10,000 Rand in terms of online sales per month, are we able to invest, let's call it 10% of that sales amount in actually driving customers, to the website. That's why, as I mentioned, the kind of focus that we really do on our side is that looking at one part of aspect being of its customer acquisition. So how do you acquire those customers? So what is the best approach with it is, a 20 Rand budget per day across multiple campaigns. So one campaign being awareness, one campaign can be driving traffic to site, and one campaign can be conversion. So you're looking at about 60 Rand, per day in terms of initial test. You will then be able to see whether, is this thing we bringing in results, or not. If there's no results, we kind of normally turn that off. And if it is performing well, we'll kind of just amplify, that going forward. So I think from a spending point, I think just working it backwards in a sense of, if your sales target is X amount, are you able to invest, let's call it 10% or of that amount? And how do you then kind of use that to kind of base, creatively and strategically use that to achieve, your kind of sales amount? But what happens is also that those behaviors kind of change. So there kind of has to be an always on approach, but very much from a test point of view in terms of, do we test new products? Do we test new collaterals, whether it is the use of images versus video? Do we use our own content that we produce, like Bettina has mentioned, from a photo shoot, or do we actually get our users or our customers to actually generate content for us? And in that case, using user-generated content. So do I get customers to actually do that for photography or shoot for me? I think nowadays, with the levels of smartphones, it is quite good quality. So if a customer takes pictures of themselves in using your comments, that is also a nice way to then post that, across, social media, but really much just drives that customer acquisition point of view as well. But I think to answer the question from a social media point of view is that I think firstly understand where your customers, hang out and spend their time. The guys that advertise, on TikTok and Snapchat, for example, might be very different from the guys that advertise on a corporate, workwear or kind of suiting from a LinkedIn, point of view. As where from Instagram, those guys will be very, fashion conscious, as well as, on trend. As where maybe Facebook might be the guys that are slower in terms of, what's trendy and what's happening, but they spend much more time on the platform to actually discover brands, look at images and watch videos per se. So once you understand where your customer does, spend most of their time, we even had a recent case where we started selling leather shoes online. So it's a brand is called Ribbons Collection. They based out in Bloemfontein, but the shoes are ranging anything from leather shoes from 4,000 to 6,000 Rand. So those guys don't really have time, or they don't really spend time on Facebook per se, because they are executives or CEOs, and we have to kind of communicate to them much better in LinkedIn, as they do check their LinkedIn profiles from a, checking news or information point of view. So really much understanding who your customer is, where they spend their time, and how best and how frequent you need to actually communicate to them per se. And that is kind of how we set up and structure from a marketing point of view to really much drive customers and traffic from social to your website in the event, to be able to convert and retain a customer over a period of time.
Thanks for that, Shane. And I think what was quite nice when you spoke about the different platforms, and you also spoke about knowing the different platforms, LinkedIn versus Instagram, and understanding the people that are on those platforms. Janine, I want to go to you. And there are people that probably are listening in that are maybe not necessarily designers, but they are probably also in a service-orientated industry. The question would be, how do you market your services, or how do you market yourself, or what advice would you give to people that are in the service space, service industry?
So a lot of our kind of work, being an image consultant and a fashion stylist, personal shopper, however you want to categorize it, is by referral. So there's your first clue. So it's establish yourself and make sure that you keep your good reputation. Deliver on what you promise in every regard. So that is fundamental in order to achieve the referral, first and foremost. Then on the other hand, being a keynote speaker, being someone that is in front of an audience, it's a successful way of marketing. So it's about knowing how to sell when you're in front of an audience, but not selling at all. So it's using other opportunities, having conversations, speaking and connecting and networking and just being able to not only focus on the social media side of things, but in the face-to-face side of things as well. So I think marketing for our kind of business, although social media does play a role, it has been a little bit more successful based on referral and based on one-on-one conversations with people. You know, you don't really know you need a stylist or an image consultant unless you physically, you know, because we consumer based, then because there's a need. So, or alternative, because you've had a conversation with someone and there is, oh my gosh, I'm looking for A, B, and C. Oh, phone Janine. So it's a different platform for us completely. But social media is definitely part and parcel. On my Facebook page, my personal page, I do a lot of work in, you know, advice and trends and color and image and style. But I suppose we could do more. We can always do more, but our marketing platform is very different. It's a very different line, yeah, than others. Thanks, Cyril.
Thanks for that, Janine. Bettina, I want to go to you. And, you know, obviously our topic is the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I want to find out, you know, there are people that are probably listening that want to set on the journey of entrepreneurship. And what advice would you give for those, you know, in terms of opportunities that they can look out for in the design sector, in the service sector, for budding entrepreneurs? What advice would you recommend?
Well, first of all, I would recommend actually going to work for a bigger company if you're starting out, even if it's for 3 years. In that way, you will learn using their money on how to actually make the problems. You know, you manufacturing. How do I order fabric? Where do I get the fabric from? So you're actually learning by working with somebody else. I just think that it's some advice I would give is to work with a bigger company first before you go and splash out and go on your own. And then I think that clothing is difficult right now in that you want to go and deal with chain stores, because chain stores are really wanting to be more vertical and do it themselves. So I think that the opportunity right now for us is exactly what we're doing in starting new brands, Instagram, Shopify, selling your stuff online. And I think that is the future. I think the big players like Truworths, Foschini's, Woolworths are all going to do it themselves. So it's very hard for you to be small and to go and say, okay, look at me, here I am, I can design and work with you. Start small and work your way and get bigger and bigger that way. I think that our marketing for us has been the most important thing. I make the clothes. I fortunately have my daughter, Kelly, that does all the marketing. And so I'm the one that manufactures and she's the one. So maybe partner with someone who can do the social media side with you. So that you don't have to do that as well. It's very difficult to put all the hats on. Okay, I'm going to now be the banker. Now I'm going to be the social media. Now I'm going to be the designer. Now I'm going to do manufacturing. So I would also recommend getting a partner in the business that's going to and say, listen, you head of brand and you head of design have a very definite role because you don't want to step on each other's toes. But it's very hard to do it just on your own. So I don't know if that's good advice, Cyril. But no, I'm talking from my heart.
Yeah, talking from your heart is best because it's honest. And I think it's really great because, you know, we're talking to industry experts that have been in the industry, they've paid the prices, and it's kind of giving budding entrepreneurs a bit of wisdom. So thank you for that. But Bettina, in fact, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to answer this question. But while I have you on, the question I want you to find out is, it's a famous question that's always asked in most panel discussions. One thing you now know that you wish you could have known when you were setting down the road of entrepreneurship. What would be that one thing? So that's to each of you, but I'm going to go with Bettina first, and then we'll go to Janine. So Bettina, to you.
I wish that I had started sooner. I'm old. I wish I'd started when I was younger. I did actually start my brand long ago and then left it and went back into chain stores. I wish I'd carried on and pursued it. And I think that's it. Once you start, I think if I pursued it from the beginning and carried on, I wish I'd done that.
I think that's great. That's great advice, because if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, he started while he was still studying on campus, right?
Yeah.
And
he carried on. He pursued it.
And he pursued it. So good advice for people that are in the room that are young, that are passionate. Just stay the path. Janine, what would you suggest? What would you say to to entrepreneurs that the one thing that you wish you would have known?
I hope I can do two, Cyril, if you don't mind. I'm going to bang off what Bettina said, just around, you know, going to work for a big brand and learning as much as you can, and almost start developing your ideas and your creativity while you've got the safety and of a salary, of a, you know, a constant income. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was jump out of Egoli and said, thanks very much for my full-time job, I'm going to go and start my own business with nothing, you know, and not knowing which way was left, right, and center. So I definitely think that's one thing I wish I'd done differently, stuck it out and just, you know, started building organically. And the other thing is realizing that I never stop working, I never stop creating, I never stop thinking, I never stop developing, I never stop finding other ways. And it can be a bad thing, and it's a fantastic thing at the same time, because it's exhausting if you're constantly working, but at the same time it is fuel. It's fuel for your creativity. So keep going, keep at it, don't stop for a minute, because it's an exciting world of fashion. But the biggest mistake that fashion designers make is that we don't have the tenacity, we don't have the longevity to stick it out. But for those of you who are out there and want to stick it out and want to make it real, then bite like a bulldog and don't let go, because it's worth it. It is a phenomenal trade. It is, no day is the same. Every day is different, and I love it because I get to wake up in the morning and create, and nothing is more rewarding than that.
I think the one thing I learned from that is bite like a bulldog and keep going.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Thanks for that, Janine. Shane, over to you. The one thing that you would wish you would have known.
Perfect. I would just say is that start with the end in mind, know where you want to be, and kind of, you know, thrive and work towards that. I think where I am right now is because, you know, of that, but I'll continue to do that. So, you know where you want to be, and then kind of have a plan and continue working every day to work on that and achieving that. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Now, Kwazi, I see that you are with us, so welcome. And before you answer that, maybe Josh will just give a little intro to you, and then I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, I'll just give it an intro to Nkwazi, and then we can obviously just obviously have to wrap up on the Q&A fairly soon. Nkwazi, welcome. Nkwazi is passionate about developing businesses and business leaders in Africa. Her work allows her to develop aspiring business leaders, cultivate entrepreneurial thinking, develop and empower individuals, and promote a culture of entrepreneurial, innovative, and creative thinking. She is an entrepreneur, adjunct lecturer, podcaster, and the author of the Small Business Handbook. She is always looking for areas to create, inspire, and empower.
Now, Kwazi, welcome to you.
Thank you. And my apologies. I'm calling from Nairobi, and the time difference was, so I actually apologize for joining late. Yes.
Okay. Nokwazi, maybe you just want to tell us a little bit about your business, and then I will ask you a question. So if you just want to give us a little bit about what you do, that would be great so everybody can understand.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Cyril, what I've done for the last 8 years is work with small businesses and specifically startups, so helping people kind of take their idea and build a business model to help them grow. So that's what I've done for the last 8 years, and I'm now currently also transitioning and starting a new business. So I am a startup myself, also currently at the moment, and I've been working on that for the last 5 months.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for that. The question I'm going to ask you is, you know, we're still in COVID, and it's affected all of us globally. In terms of work, you know, how do you approach a hybrid model? So, you know, working from home and that kind of format, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are listening in?
Okay. I think for me, in terms of work, what I did in terms of setting up a hybrid model is that the first thing I did is just look at my infrastructure and to ensure that I have all the necessary internet, Wi-Fi, and even backup systems for the UPS, just to ensure that I'm constantly online and can constantly deliver and meet my clients' expectations. The other thing for me that was quite key was having a chat with my accountant to ensure that I'm not mixing up any of my home expenses with my business expenses, and that I'm able to charge to the right places. I think for me, what I realized with the key shift from moving from an office space to working from home was that there are a couple of things that need to shift. So you have to create like a space to work so that you remain disciplined. You have, I would say that I found that I had the additional cash flow to allow me to invest in virtual support. So looking at a virtual assistant, you know, getting other software that I probably didn't think of having whilst I was in an office space to allow me to work more effectively. So I think, you know, when you do work from home and when you start to work virtually in a hybrid situation, you really have to think about how do I set up my home suite to ensure that you're constantly connected, but also at the same time that you don't mix your work with your personal life. Yes.
That's really sound advice, Nokwazi. Thank you for that. We've obviously reached our time limit. So what I want to do is I just really want to thank each of the panelists at this point and really for your expertise. And I think what was really great was that everybody spoke from their heart and gave honest information, honest feedback. And that is something that budding entrepreneurs really need to hear. And just for to go to each one very quickly, if you could just, you know, because it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, but we really want to leave on a positive note with our entrepreneurs. You know, maybe Nokwazi will go back to you. What's the one sort of soundbite that you would say to somebody who's starting up a business, who is in a business? On a positive note, we're in load shedding, we're still in COVID, economic challenges, but there's always that thread of hope. What would you leave somebody with?
I think what I would leave somebody with is that you must collaborate. We're actually in the age of collaboration, and that is, you know, when somebody else can support you, you don't have to do it alone. So move from a competitive mindset to a collaborative mindset, and I think it will make things much easier.
Thank you, Shane. What would you say? Shane, are you there? Okay, Bettina, can we go to you?
Okay, I've got a very exciting ending because I've got my spring hat on, and my matching outfit. And the most exciting part about this is you get to do what you want to in forest color and design. So have fun with it.
I'm kind of jealous that you have an Aperol in your hand, but cheers to you.
I know.
Sure. Yeah. Janine, over to you. It looks beautiful, by the way, and congrats again on your launch, Janine.
Thank you. I love what Nokwazi said, and I think, you know, as a seasoned creative entrepreneur, we have a tendency to keep everything to ourselves, which is so sad because design is all about sharing and, you know, and building. So I would say community. Make sure that you've got a support system around you and build your community, and make sure that you can to get through these hard times, because it hasn't been fun, and it's not fun for any of us, but we're the only ones who can control our own sense of self, our state of mind, because we've got so much going on as entrepreneurs. And if you can just narrow down that focus and say, I'm here for the long haul, come hell or high water, you know, that's good enough. And you can do it. You can absolutely do it.
Thanks for that, Janine. Before I pass over back to Josh, Shane, just checking one last time if you are there for your last piece. Maybe not. Okay, Josh, there's Shane. So Shane,
Okay.
just yeah.
Well, thanks very, very much again, guys, for the opportunity and time. But I think just in closure is that I think the opportunity that we find ourselves in right now, the second time for everyone, I think it's how we really much, you know, look at the opportunity and how do we also tackle these challenges and issues. Because I think in any business and any size of business, we all have different levels of challenges and issues. But it's really much how do we, you know, creatively, you know, look at that as opportunity and actually use that, you know, to our advantage. But that's very much it from my side. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the rest of the SA Fashion Week webinars and also in person. And really much looking forward to be able to be a part of this community as well. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much. Josh, back to you.
Great. Thank you very, very much, sincerely, to all the panelists. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Someone obviously is embarking on the entrepreneurial journey myself. Got lots of new initiatives I've set up. And I think a lot of that advice will go a long way to helping me personally too. Just to remind you all that, again, the fashion shows are the 20th to 22nd of October in Mall of Africa. You can now book your tickets on Cricket. If you are interested in the trade show, I'm going to just quickly pop the email address of my colleague Kennelly. You can contact if you would like to exhibit. And if you'd like to visit, we will be putting a registration link on the website shortly. But thank you very much for joining. Wherever you are, good luck with load shedding, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you. And then just as a final closing note, our next webinar will happen next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. It's going to be on how to build a brand and market your business. We've also got some really nice, good speakers on. We'll be promoting it on social media and sending out an email in the next week. So do keep an eye on that. But that'll be next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Thanks again, everyone, for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.